Hi there. This video will describe how to create a chest opening closing interaction with a key press, as well as setting up the ability so that a coin can pop out of the chest and the player can collect a coin. And we're going to do all this in Unity. So I'm going to show you a preview of it, and then we're going to come back and recreate all of this. In some previous videos, I talked about creating an interaction system with coins that can be collected, and then some doors that can open and close when I move into the zone. This video will be a little bit different because this interaction will require the player to move into a zone, see that text will say press the E key, and then actually press the E key to open and close the chest. And then when I press the E key to open the chest, it's going to pop out a coin. That gravity and physics will be applied to it, and then I can pick up that coin. If I turn on my console here, I can pick up that coin and it'll say coin collected, 1 coin collected. And then I can also move in here and close the chest, so I can do it over and over again, so it's repeatable action. Okay, and each one of these coins can be picked up and collected as well. So we'll set up a system like this from scratch. Alright, I'm going to remove out the chest that I already have in here, and we're going to create this manually. I already have a chest object. So if I drag this into the scene, you can see it's a chest object that has some animation on there. This animation is done a little bit differently. This animation is done with a joint system, and the animation was created in a modeling software. And the animation opens and closes. So I actually have a couple of animation states in here. And I can remove these other ones out so you can see the whole thing. So the animation as I created in a modeling software is chest opening and chest closing. So before we even create the object in the scene, let's create our animation clip. So in order for this to work when I'm interacting with this, I need to refine my clips that I have here. So I have an open anim clip, and then this one is going to be, you can change the name right here if you wanted to. This one's going to be 1 to 15, I believe, so 1 to 15. So if I hit play, that's just the chest opening. I'm going to come back up and I'm going to click the plus symbol underneath the inspector, and I have my 3D object selected here. And we'll create another one, then we'll call this one close anim. Okay. And then that one's going to go, let's see, I think 30 to 45. Okay, so let's play back and see that. So that's going to be the close animation. So it's going to start open and close back to the original position. So we really only need 2 clips here. I need an open anim, that's 15 frames, and a close anim, that's, let's see, 30 to 45. Here we go. So only 15 frames, and this was an imported in animation. So if I open up my object, I have animations that were created. I have my joint system. Let's do apply here. Okay. My joint system. And then I have my individual objects of that chest. And I also have my material for that chest. So with that set up, the animation clip set up for us, it created those 2 animation clips, close and open animation. There's a different way to set up animation than to do it in Unity. Now I'm going to take my mesh chest and drag that into my hierarchy, and we'll call this one chest A. Chest A. In previous videos I added chest or coin A, door A, and I'm going to call this one chest A because I already have objects in my world that are called chest, or prefabs that are called chest. It is large, so let's scale this down. Let's try 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and then we'll move it up. So you just move it up 0.5 there. Might be a little lower, but let's go see from the player standpoint. And this is a first person and third person switch, so I can toggle with the T key. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. It might be a little large, but I think it's pretty good for now. So we'll do 0.5 there. Alright, I'm going to rotate this kind of 90 degrees, negative 90. So that way it's facing the player, but I'm going to keep it the center of the scene here. Okay, so I might move it up just a little more just to make sure it's not clipping the ground surface. Yeah, that looks pretty good there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to create is a trigger object. So let's create a blank object. So I create empty, and we're going to call this one chest a trigger. And let's zero this on the transforms, and we're going to add a box collider to this. So box collider. This is going to be the zone the player has to be within in order to hit the E key to be able to open or close the chest. So let's move this up some, and I'm going to scale this out so we can see it. So there you go. So they have to be the width of the box or the chest. And I'm going to, oh man, I don't want to scale it up vertically. Maybe just a little bit. 1.3, 1.1 maybe. That'll work. There you go. And then the z-axis, I want this to be much wider in the z-axis. I want the player to be able to see the chest without being too close to it. So that'll work right there. Maybe we'll do 6 for that. And the scale X would be 2. There you go. That works. So this is the zone the player has to be within in order to open or close the chest. All right, the box collider needs to be set to is trigger. So that way we don't collide with it. We can set it as a trigger. The last thing we're going to do is create another empty object, and we'll call this one chest a base. This is going to be our hierarchy node in order to be able to place the chest in the world. So let's do reset the transforms. Okay, we can leave that in the middle. That's fine for the middle right now. Let's take our chest A, which is our object, and our chest A trigger, and parent that underneath the chest A base. So wherever the chest A base goes, the chest will move with it. We need one last thing, and that is an animator on the chest A object. This is where the animation is set. So if I do add component, and we're going to add an animator. All right, the difference is we're not going to use the animation section because we already have animations created. So now in the Animator, if you don't have any of these, you can go to Windows, Animation, and open up Animation or Animator. So we're not going to use the animation because we pre-created the animation in the outside modeling and animation software. And we're going to use the Animator. All right. So if there's anything in here as default, they may already be in here according to if you've set up the animations before. But I'm going to remove those out, and this is for the previous object actually. So let's make sure we have our door or chest selected. That was for the door. Okay, so if it's not adding the chest to the animator, all we have to do is go into the animation section and click create here, and then in our animations folder we'll just call this chest a idle. We're not going to use this one, but in order to kind of set it up, we'll do a chest a idle. Then now if I go back to the animator, now this is for my chest object. Okay. So I'm actually not going to use this idle state, so I can I'll wait to remove that out. But what I am going to do is go, here's my meshes folder, and then there's my 2 animations that I have. I'm going to click and drag my animator tab up here to the game and scene section so I can see it. But I'm going to drag those 2 animations, close anim and open anim, and drag those into the animator of the chest A object. Here you go. So now I have a close anim and an open anim. I don't need this chest idle anymore. But what I am going to do is create just an empty state. So create state empty. And we are going to call this one idle though. So I don't need an actual animation idle clip. But I do need an idle. And if I go back to my animations, loop time is not an option with pre-created motions, but that's okay because I'm going to trigger them anyway. So I'm going to set this up in a similar way that I did the door in the previous video. But here's my idle state. I'm going to right click on that and choose set as layer default state. I'm going to right click on that again and choose make transition and drag that to open anim. I'm going to right click on open anim, make transition, and drag that to close anim. And I'm going to right click on close anim, make transition, and add that to idle. So it's going to cycle between idle, which is the chest is closed, and then can it open? If so, then open the chest. And then can it close? If so, then close the chest and then go back to idle. So we need a parameter here. So in the Animator tab, underneath that, there's a subtab called Parameter. We're going to click the plus symbol and add a bool. We're going to tell this one is open. Okay. Is open. All right. So with this one, the first transition is the area between the idle and the open anim. So we're going to click on that one, and I don't want to have an exit time. So turn off exit time, and then the condition, I want to click the plus symbol for condition, is open, and then make sure that's set to true. So when the player presses the E key, if that is in the zone and can press the E key, then play the animation when is open is true. Let's click on the transition between open anim and close anim. Let's turn off has exit time and click the plus symbol for condition, and is open is the only one we have, but we're going to change this to false. So is open is false. That means it's going to close the chest and animate the chest closing. And then the final transition we're going to leave as is. We're not going to put a condition, and we're going to leave has exit time. We can reduce this down a little bit more. 0.75. So that way it's not going to cut off as much of the close animation if it does blend it. But that's our setup for our animator, for our chest here. All right. All right, last thing we want to do is make sure in Unity, so let's go back to our scene tab, make sure in Unity that we do have an input set up. So if you go to Edit, Project Settings, and Input Manager, I've already set one up, but in case you don't have one, the size, if you increase that by 1, I have a couple in here that I've created. If I increase that by 1 from 19 to 20, the default may be 18, it will duplicate that last one and give you the option to create a custom one. So we'll say just E for the name, so E press, it'll just be E. And then the positive button, I'm going to do a lowercase e to make sure it doesn't have to be a uppercase E. So the name of it is a capital E, the positive button is lowercase e. So that way Unity can understand that when I press the E key to do something in a script. All right, so that's the input manager. We have to set that up first. Now we can go into our interaction script. Let's make sure our interaction script is on our object. So let's remove this previous one and drag our interactions A script back in here. And now we're going to add our adjustments to the script to make the chest open and close when I press the E key, but only in that trigger zone. So only when the player enters this trigger zone, allow the player to press the E key. All right, it's going to give us a warning that some of these clips don't have an exit time. That's fine because I don't want an exit time. So we're going to go back into our interaction script. And then here's our interactions A script that we were working on previously. We have our coin pickup and our door open and close. So we're going to add to that. You can look at the previous videos to add to this. We're going to need a couple of private variables. And then we're going to need one public variable. All right, so let's start with our private variables and get our chest running. Then we'll come back and add to it. So we're going to need one called private bool. This is going to be called is inside trigger. And we're going to set the default to that to false, semicolon. And I'm going to come back and describe what these are here in a minute. We're going to need another one that says private bool, and this one's going to be called is open. Is open equals false. And those are default states. And then we're going to need one that's going to be private animator. We're going to call this one chest AnimatorRef for reference. All right, so the first trigger will give us a variable that will determine are we inside of the collider or not. And then the second one is, well, is the chest open or not? And then we can tell it to do something. And the third one is a private animator. This is the same thing how we did with the door. We're going to store the chest objects animator component in a variable that we can call that, so we don't have to run longer lines of code every time we need to reference the chest animator component. All right, so we're going to use void update to see is the player inside the collision zone, and if so, then allow the player to press the E key. So in our void update, we're going to do is, or if is inside trigger. If that equals true, then we're going to allow the player to press the E key. So I'm going to close that parentheses, and then we're going to add a comment, is collide with chest. Okay. So just to know what I'm doing there. We'll return down to open and close curly brackets. So inside this if statement that says, well, if I'm in the trigger or not, or in the box collider zone, then allow my player to press the E button. So if input.get button down, open parentheses, open quotation, the E key, and close all those out. And then if I open up another set of curly brackets, then I'm going to do is open. So I'm going to set my is open Boolean variable. Is open equals not is open, which is a exclamation mark is open, semicolon. So this is our toggle. This will allow us to toggle. So is chest open or not? So this allows us to toggle back and forth. Every time I hit the E key, it's going to either open or close the chest. All right, so that's what that line does. It's a toggle back and forth. Underneath that, we're going to reference our chest animator ref, and very similar to how we did the door, we're going to do the set bool is open true. So chest animator ref dot set bool. We're going to do a little bit different this time, but we're still going to find the is open Boolean, and we're going to put a comma after that. And then instead of saying true or false, we're going to say, well, is it open or is it not? Is the chest open or not? So we're actually going to paste in our is open Boolean, which is going to be false or true. So is open. So that will actually open or close chest with animation. Okay, so that's what that line will do. All right, so for void update, that's all we need for right now. We're going to go into void on trigger and add a new if statement. So we're going to go down underneath the door and pick up, which is a coin, if statement. So we're going to add a new one. So we're going to do very similar to what we did earlier. If other.gameObject.compare tag, open parentheses, open quotation, and we need to look for a tag called chest. We haven't created that chest tag in Unity so far, but that's what we're going to go back and create here in a second. So this is can chest be opened? Can chest be opened here? So before we move too far ahead, let's go back into Unity, and on the chest A trigger, we want to add that tag. So we don't. You may not have a tag already. I got one called chest in here. If you don't have a tag, you can click the add tag button and create a new one. Call that chest. But on my chest A trigger on the box collider, I'm going to add my chest tag to that. There you go. So that way this line will see, well, is there an object with a compare tag called chest? We're going to return down and open and close curly bracket. And the first thing we need to do is say, well, is our local variable of our is inside trigger, set that to true. Is inside trigger true. So if the player is within the zone of the box collider for the chest, then set this inside trigger to true. So back up here in the void update, well, if that's true, then allow the player to press the E key to open or close the chest. So that's necessary for that part. And these next couple of lines are going to be references to the children of the chest base object. Okay, so what we need is to find the when I collide with the chest A trigger, the box collision, I then need to find the chest A object that has the animator component associated with it. So to do that, I need to look for the trigger component collider, and then look upward to the parent, which is chest A base, and then look down to a child of that chest A base that's called chest A. So we need to add that in our lines of code here. So the first local variable here is a transform. We're going to call this one ChestRef, and that's going to be equal to other.transform.parent.F find, and then open parentheses, open quotation, and then we're going to call this one chest A because that's what it was named. So make sure chest A. So that's going to find the box collider object, look up to the parent, and then in that parent look for an object underneath that that's called chest A. Store that in this variable called ChestRef. Underneath that, we're going to add an animator. We then need to find the chest A component called Animator. So we're going to add a local Animator variable, and we're just going to call this one chest Animator. And that's going to be equal to ChestRef, which is the previous variable we just created. ChestRef.get component. Open the angle bracket and type in Animator, close angle bracket, open and close a set of parentheses, and semicolon. So that finds the Animator component of this chest A object and stores that in a variable. So last one is where we're using this private Animator variable. So we're going to return down, and we'll say chest AnimatorRef, which is our overall private variable, equals chest animator, semicolon. So that's going to store this information in our private variable that we can access outside of just this if statement. All right, so that's can the chest be opened. We also need an OnExit or onTrigger exit. So in our onTrigger exit void, we're going to go down and we're going to add another if statement that says if other.gameObject.compareTag, in parentheses, open quotations, chest, and this will give the option to close chest. We'll return down and open and close a set of curly brackets, and then all we have to do here is do is inside trigger equals to false. Okay. Because we're really looking for is it inside the trigger or not, and if it's inside the trigger, then store the references for the chest animator, and then if the E press key button is pressed and if inside trigger is true, then play the chest open animation. If not, play the chest close animation because the inside trigger is set to false. All right, let's hit Control S to save. Let's go back into Unity, see if we got any errors. If you don't, we have that warning as far as the exit time. All right, so now if we go play, the chest should open up. So if we go in and play, we go move into the zone. If I hit E, the chest opens up the opposite direction, so we just need to rotate the whole thing around 180 degrees. But if I press E, it opens and closes. It only allows me to press E. I'm pressing E out here. It doesn't open the chest, so only when I'm in that zone and press E, it opens and closes the chest. So let's correct that. Let's take the chest base A. Actually, let's take the chest and let's do 90 to rotate the opposite direction. There you go. So let's play again. Now the chest should open from the right angle. There you go. So chest opens and closes when I'm pressing the E key. All right, so that works. All right, so let's make this easier to understand and also kick an object out or push an object out so we can collect it. So to do that, we're going to add some text, and then we're going to reference a coin object in order to create a coin and allow the player to collect a coin when he opens up the chest. So we're going to use 3D object, game object, text mesh pro. And if you don't have this already input or loaded in your project, you can just click this. I've already have it in my project, but if a prompt comes up, just click import or add to your project. So, but this is going to be my text that says text, so this is the title of the object, text press open, and I'm going to add the letter A behind it because I already have an object called press open A. Press open A. Okay. The sample text, and I'm going to title this one press E to open. Okay. And let's just make it much smaller, and I'm going to I know what my size is going to be, about 1.5. And then I don't need this to be that large, so I'll title that down to like 1.5. 1 maybe. That was too much. 1.5. And the height at 0.5 maybe. I'm just trying to get this to the right size. Move it out here. Move it up. There you go. That looks pretty good. Maybe it doesn't need to be that wide. 0.3. Oh no. 0.5 and 1.2. That'll work. And then I'm going to change the alignment to center, so it's in the center of the object. This doesn't need to be that large as well, so maybe 0.2. There you go. So I'm just changing the width and height, which is the box parameter, and then type in whatever you want the text to say, and then change the font size, and then I center align this object. I'm also going to go up to the rect transforms and type in 0 and 0 to make sure it's in the center, and then I can move this forward and up just to make sure I'm starting from a central location there. Looks pretty good. Maybe I want to be a little bit further out from the box. Alright, so I'm going to duplicate this text. So Control D for duplicate, and let's rename this closed A. So press closed A. And this one I'm just going to say press E to close. And I'm going to keep it in the same center location. Alright, so what I want to happen is when the player overlaps the box collider, then to display the text depending on if the chest is open or closed. And it's going to kind of turn on and off the active standpoint for these two text boxes. So let's turn off the active for both of them because I don't want them to be visible to begin with. I am going to parent this underneath the chest base so that they're in the chest base. And now we can go into our script and add our script to it. Alright, so in our script, we're going to go up to the top. And underneath our private variables that we've already created, we're going to add 2 more. So private transform open text ref is just going to be a local name we're going to call it. And then we also need private transform close text ref. Okay, and we're going to treat this very similar to how we found the chest reference and then the door reference. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is actually go down and get a reference within our trigger collider for the chest. So in our chest, we're going to return down, maybe underneath the chest animator stuff, and we're going to look for this object. So just as we did for the chest, we got to look upward. So we're going to do transform in a local one just called open text equals other.transform.parent.find, and then we need to know the exact name of that, so we call that one text underscore press open A, and put a semicolon there. We need to do the same thing for our closed text, so transform closed text equals other.transform.parent.find, and then we're going to look for text underscore press close A, semicolon. Let's go back and make sure we have those spelled correctly. Text press open A, text E press closed. Oh, we have a D there, so we need to make sure we put closed A. There we go. All right, so that finds the parent of the chest object, or chest collider, and then finds an object underneath that called our text E press open A or closed A. Now we need to store that into our private variable. So open ChestRef equals open text, semicolon, and then close ChestRef equals closed text. There you go. So now that we have set up so we can find those two text nodes, now we need to turn them on and off depending on what the player is doing. So if the player overlaps the chest object, we want to see is the chest open, and if the chest is open, then display press E to close chest, or if the chest is closed, then press E to open chest. Okay, so within our if statement for the chest, we're going to return down, and we're going to add a new if statement. And we created our is open or is not open in our E press. So we want to see, well, is it open or not? So in our if statement of our chest compare tag, we're going to do another if statement that says if is open equals true. This is going to check to see if the chest open, display closed text. We're going to open up and close curly brackets. Here's where we can debug and say debug log chest open. And we can get our references to our open TextRef and closed TextRef. So we can say close TextRef, close TextRef dot game object dot set active. And we're going to turn that to false. Oh, sorry, true. True. We want to turn on our closed TextRef. And then we also want to make sure that our open TextRef dot game object dot set active is set to false. So no matter what it was before, we want to make sure if is open is true, that our closed text is visible and our open text is not visible. So underneath that if statement, we're going to return down, and we're going to do else if is open is false. And what this is going to do is say the chest is closed, display open text. All right, let's open and close curly brackets again for our else statement, and we will do debug log, debug.log, and we'll say chest closed. And this time we're going to swap these values, so we can actually copy and paste these. So if is open is false, the chest is closed, then we want to turn off, have false for closed text, and true, turn on the open text. All right, so in our on trigger exit of the chest, we also want to come in here and paste in our references to turn off both the closed TextRef and open TextRef. So we want these both to be false here, which means when I exit the collider, I don't want any of the text to be visible. So turn them both off if the player exits the collision. So false for both of those. All right, so now we need to go up to our if statement in the update when the E key press is pressed or not. Okay, so in our if statement for the E press, we have is open and is not open as our toggle, and then we're going to play our chest animation open and closing. Underneath that, we're going to add another if and if else or else if statement. which is then going to allow us to turn on and off the closed text and open text as well. So if is open equals true, we'll open up and close curly brackets. Then we're going to do debug.log and then chest open. Then once again, this is going to be chest open display close text. And we can go down and kind of copy our lines again. Display closed text here, copy, and paste that in here. And we'll just tab over. So if is open, when key E is pressed, then display closed text and turn off open text. And then we're going to turn down after this is open and do an else if is open equals false. Open up and close. Whoop, okay, so no equals false. There we go. Then we're going to do debug.log chest closed. And this one's going to be chest closed, display open text. Okay, and we forgot our semicolon there. We also forgot our semicolon here. There we go. And then we can copy our lines of code up here and then just swap these values. So display open text, so we want our closed text to be false and our open text to be true. Alright, so let's save. Doesn't look like we have any errors, so we'll go back into Unity. See if Unity tells us we got any errors. Alright, we're good. And then let's hit play. So let's see if this works. So I'm outside the zone and I don't see my text. When I go into the zone, press E to open. If I go out of the zone, it should display nothing. If I go back in and press the E key, it opens the chest. Okay, now it says press E to close. If I go out of the zone and go back into it, it should say press E to close again. If I press E key again, it should say press E to open. So it's an easy way to kind of have localized text to encourage the player to do something with this object. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is set up an ability so that when the chest opens, it's going to pop out a coin. And what we're going to do is we're going to use an instantiate function where we're going to reference another object. So before we do that, here is a coin object that I created beforehand. And in the previous video, I created this coin collectible, and then I made a copy of this and called this coin for chest. So I'm going to I moved it over out of the way for a second, but if I undo, this needs to be back in the center of the grid, so I just need to put 0 for Z in a minute. So I'm going to use this box collider as a rigid body object, so that as the chest opens, it'll fling this coin up in the air and it'll fall down and hit whatever surfaces it collides with. So with my coin for chest object, I'm going to turn is trigger off because I want it to collide with this object. But then I also need another object, box collider, so that the player can pick this object up. So let's do box collider, and that will create the same size box collider, but I'm actually just going to increase this. Let's see, let's actually go maybe 0.56, too much, so or not enough, so we'll do 0.16 maybe. So that's probably 0.8. Yeah, so I want the second box collider that's going to be triggerable. The first box collider is going to be used for physics. The second one's going to be used for the player to pick up this coin. I want it to be a little larger than the coin so the player can interact with it. So let's do 0.03, 0.025 maybe. 0.02223. There we go. I just want this box loader to be a little bit larger, so we'll do 0.2223. That'll work. Okay, so size, I just made it a little larger in all three axes. So the larger box collider is going to be what the player can interact with to pick it up. The smaller box collider is what is going to be used for physics. With this coin for chess, I'm going to also add a pickup tag to it. I've recreated this. I created this in the previous video, so I'm going to add that pickup tag, which already in my script I have the pickup tag there. I'm just going to need to make an adjustment to the coin collection part here in a minute. Okay, so now that I have my coin for chess ready, let's put it back to 0 in the z-axis, which is the center of the grid. And let's put it back down to 0 there. Because this is just going to be a coin that's popped out of the chest. Let's drag this into our prefabs folder. So I'm going to drag this in. It says coin for chess. Let's drag that in. Make sure I don't have one already called coin for chest. Yeah, we're going to do original prefab. There we go, coin for chest. And I don't need the one in my 3D scene anymore, so let's remove that one out. I only want to create this coin for chest when the chest is open. So here's what we're going to do to add this to our script. Okay, so in our script, we're going to add one public variable. So we're going to return down above our private variables, and we're going to add one public variable, public rigid body, and we're going to call this one CoinRef. So what we're going to do is find this prefab and then create a prefab every time the chest opens. Create the prefab in the scene and then apply some velocity to it to make it kind of jump out of the chest. So that's how we'll set this up. So we need a reference to that prefab. And in the if statement for the ePress, and underneath that in the if is open, underneath the setting to open and close, or turn on and off the open close text, I'm going to return down, and this is going to be create coin. Okay. Alright, so underneath that we're going to do rigid body. We need a local variable, rigid body, and we're going to call this one coin instance. Okay, and semicolon. We want to instantiate this, so we want to create an instance of that prefab, not just one prefab. So we're going to create a local variable, rigid body, coin instance, and then coin instance on the next line is going to be equal to instantiate, and we need to use the references that we just created. So instantiate, open parentheses, coin ref, and then one thing we haven't created so far is going to be a coin create ref dot position. We haven't created our coin create ref yet, so we're going to create that here in a second. But coin create ref dot position, comma coin create ref dot rotation. Okay, so that way we're getting the position and rotation of that object. Now let's go ahead and create this coin create ref. Now this is actually in the trigger volume. And we need to go create a reference for this. So we need a position of where this coin can be created. So let's go back into Unity. And in our chest base A object, we're going to create a new object, create empty object. And we're going to say coin create ref. Let's call it, so we don't confuse ourselves, coin create point. Okay, so let's reset the transforms. And where I want this to be is kind of in the base, in the center, maybe up a little bit more, of the chest. So we're about right there. It's kind of underneath the lid of where it's going to create this. And then I'm going to parent this underneath my chest A base. Okay. So that's going to be our reference to where to create the coin. And we can move it up later to adjust it. So in our if statement, if we're colliding with the chest, we need to get our reference to that coin. So we can add this in the kind of this middle section here. And we're going to create a local variable actually, sorry, we're going to create a private variable. So we're going to go up to the top, and we're going to create one more private variable, just as we did before, private transform. And we're going to call this one coin create ref. Coin create ref. Here you go. So we're going to reference this later, but we need to determine this in the chest if statement. So in our chest if statement here, we're going to say coin create ref equals to the other object, other.transform.parent.find, and we're going to open up parentheses and open up a quotation. And what do we call this? We'll go back into Unity. Coin create point. Coin create point. And put a semicolon there. So what this will do is, if the player is colliding with the chest collider object, then look for the parent of that object, and then underneath the parent, find this coin create point object that's named that. Okay. Here you go. All right, I got an error somewhere. Let's see. Error. All right, there it is. I got to put a semicolon at the end there. So this instantiate function now works, which means it can create a copy of this prefab of the coin for chest prefab. We got to add one more thing, and at the end of this is going to be as rigid body. Okay. So after the parentheses closes, as rigid body. Okay. And then we're going to apply a force after the coin is created. Coin instance dot add force. And we're going to use the rigid body forces. And we want to do a little bit of a random range. So we're going to open up, and some of the values we'll do some random range. So what we're looking for is a 0, 0, 0. 3 values. X is the first 0, Y is the second one, Z is the third. Don't need that last comma there, but we do need a semicolon at the end. So we want to be able to move it in all 3 axes. So I want to move this up, or apply force vertically. Let's do like 300 F. And I want to push it out towards the player, so out from the chest, push it out towards the player so it's not landing on the chest. So that would be the z-axis. We'll do negative 30 F, push it out forward. So this is the z-axis here. And then the y-axis is the vertical axis, the middle one. And then for the x-axis, let's do a random range, a random value between these. So random.range. And then we're going to open up another parentheses. We'll do negative 50, comma 50. So between those two ranges, produce a coin that goes up in the air, moves towards the player, but has variety in horizontally how it moves. All right. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is to add the collection. So down here we have is pick up, destroy the coin. That's for the original coin. So we need another if statement here for the coin ref. So if the object is colliding with coin ref, then also destroy that coin object. All right, so underneath our if statement for our pickup for our original coin, we're going to add another one that's going to say if other equals coin ref. So we have a reference to that. That's going to be pick up and destroy chest coin. We're going to open up and close some parentheses or the curly brackets there. And we're going to copy our lines here underneath our other one. So let's copy and go home and paste. So then we want to destroy that other game object, add to the coin collection, and debug coin collected, whatever that value is. So that should be it, other than one thing I remember that I forgot to add was reference to the TextMesh Pro objects. This is not going to work right now unless we go all the way up at the top and go to using and go using TM Pro See if this is right. All right, TM Pro, and we're going to do semicolon. I do have an error somewhere. Oh, nope, that corrected that, so I guess I was just trying to add that. Using TM Pro, so that allows us to connect to the Text Mesh Pro objects in here. All right, let's hit save. And let's go into Unity. And let's like compile on it, see if we got any errors or warnings. Everything's good. All right, so in Unity, the only thing we have to do is go to our character movement object, and then we have to funnel in our prefab reference to our script. So in our prefabs, we want to make sure we find coin for chest and drag that into coin reference there. And let's save, and let's see if this works. So if I hit play, okay, we'll go up to our chest. E-press should work. Oh, look at that, our coin popped up in the air. Where'd it go though? I lost where it went. See if we can see where it went. Oh, we don't have a rigid body on that object so far. So it just kind of flies up in the air consistently. So for our coin for chest object in our prefab, we need to add a rigid body to this. So coin for chest, we need to go into add component, and we're going to look for rigid body. And, oh, we didn't add it. Rigid can be added because coin for chest already contains, oh, where is it? So rigid body. Okay, it is working. Use gravity. Let's turn on use gravity. There you go. That was the issue. Our rigid body's on there. Our use gravity is not on. So turn on use gravity. Now it won't just continue to float in the air. All right, so now we play. If I go in here, I press E. Coin pops out, and it falls into the ground. If I close that, I can do it again. Another coin will pop out. So there's some random motion there. Every time I'm clicking, it's going to choose a random value between -50 and 50. And let's stop so I can see if it's collecting all the individual coins. We'll play it again. And if I come in here and press the E key, there's one coin. Let's see if go to our console, see if it's going to collect it. If I go over here and move over the coin, there we go, collected the coin and destroyed the coin. Now I can do this again, see if it collects the second coin. Yep, second coin is collected. So that's an easy way to set up, as easy as possible way to set up an interactable chest with an E-press, with the trigger zone, and it actually is producing a coin for us as well that we can pick up and collect. All right, that'll wrap up this video on how to create an interactive chest. Actually, one last thing I wanted to mention here is that we did not convert this to a prefab, so it's all set up properly so we can convert to a prefab. And all I have to do is go to my prefabs folder and drag my chest A base into my prefabs folder. That converts it to a prefab. And let's see, chest A base. So if I drag more copies of my chest A base into my scene, I can move them around to different areas. Let's drag a couple more over here. Now if I play, each one of these chests will work independently. So come up to this chest, that one will work and create some coins. Go up to ones over here, create some coins. Each one of these works properly because we've set it up in that way so that the prefab can be duplicated throughout the scene. Alright, that'll wrap up this video on creating a chest interaction in Unity.